one and all. This is Doug Ray. This is the Wealth Guardian Show, and thank you for tuning in. I think you're going to really enjoy today's show. I've got my friend Bob Rainier back on the radio with us, and this show today, I think you're going to find it very thought-provoking, eye-opening, and some of you are going to find it downright scary. Before we get to Bob, I want to promote my next Social Security workshop, which is going to be held on February 23rd and 28th in Clemens at the Broyhill. And all you have to do to register for that is call our office at 336-391-3409, or even go on our website at www.thewealthguardians.com. On the events tab, you can register right there. Also, if you're out and about today and you're hearing bits and pieces of the show and you find it interesting and you'd like to hear the whole thing, you can replay the show on my website at thewealthguardians.com on the radio tab. We should have the podcast up and running by probably Tuesday, so it's there for you. It's been, Bob, it's been a while since we had you on the show back in the summer of last year. A whole lot has changed since then, has it not?
Boy, it sure has, Doug, and I certainly appreciate having me back. It's been a tumultuous last 6 or 7 months, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. I mean, no sooner did you go off the show than we had Brexit, and then we turn around in the fall and we have a crazy presidential election, which the world didn't see coming. We have President Trump in office, and then it has been one thing after the other since he raised his hand on January the 20th.
It certainly has. And the pushback against Mr. Trump is something unprecedented. This is something we've never seen before. And people will go back to FDR and different presidents in the past and say, well, the press gave them a lot of heat too, but nothing whatsoever like what we're seeing right here. And in a way, that's a good thing. Because what that means is this outsider that stepped in and said he was going to do some things has really set the establishment deep state, on its head, and they don't want any part of it. They like their comfy setup, they like the money, they like the power, and this guy's coming in to disrupt things, and they're doing everything they can to take him down.
You know, since General Flynn resigned last week, we've heard a lot of the term deep state, shadow government bandied about. Of course, Glenn Beck's talked about it for several years. It used to be, for me anyway, that I just didn't believe in those kinds of conspiracy theories. But the more I read, the more I see, the more I read of your letter, I'm starting to have a change of heart. Can you tell my audience a little bit about this so-called shadow government?
Yeah, and it would take us a month of Sundays to get through the whole thing, but the short Reader's Digest version is this. You have a gigantic government. It's got so many arms and divisions and agencies. I mean, we have 16 different intelligence agencies, so to speak, okay? And then you've got the Pentagon, and then you've got all the military industrial side that make the bombs and the radars, et cetera, et cetera. So over the course of decades, people get entrenched in these agencies, people get entrenched in these industries and these corporations, and there's a money flow, and there's a power structure. So they like to see politicians that go along with their agenda. So what's their agenda? Well, their agenda is more and more control. Their agenda is more and more wars that we don't need, so that, you take a smart bomb of today, and that bomb cost the United States $1 million. We dropped lots of them, okay? I think Obama dropped 27,000 of them. Well, 27,000 millions is a lot of money, and the corporations that make those type of things like that money. So they don't really care that we're out around the world toppling dictators and making believe that we're trying to make democracies around the world. They just like the wars. So we've got power struggles, we've got control struggles, and we've got industrial manufacturing and airplanes, etc. All these people loved the quote establishment, the way it was, the way, the agenda, the politicians going all the same way. They're the people that actually make an awful lot of the rules and the decisions that our country goes through because, of course, they make decisions that are beneficial to their bottom lines and to their power structures. So when you get an outsider, somebody that's not even a politician, but hasn't been connected to that system, that agenda, they want no part of it. And they're fighting back like we have never seen before. And let me tell you, this is just the opening inning. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you just tuned in, we're talking today on the Wealth Guardian show with Bob Rainier. Bob lives down in Florida, Sarasota area, and he writes a newsletter, which I've been a subscriber of for several years now, and I've learned a ton in his newsletter. He even gives you trades in the newsletter, and I'm going to tell you about a few trades here in a moment. But Bob, I want you to tell the folks now the offer you want to make them for my listeners.
Well, I did something just so people understand that I'm not a licensed professional. I'm not a broker. So I can't really tell anybody how to make an investment or what to do with the money. But what I can do is say, okay, folks, this is what I'm doing. You're free to follow along. So when I place a trade in my members area, before I make the trade, I tell you, hey, I'm looking at this particular stock, and I'm probably going to buy it if it gets over this level or what have you, or I'm going to sell it if it does this. And people are free to follow along. So what I did was way back when Hurricane Sandy kind of knocked down my house up in New Jersey, and I knew half of the Northeast was going to be hurting, I said, I want to do something for the people. And I generally get $199 per year for the Insiders Club. And I offered them a lifetime subscription for $600. $600 one-time payment. You will get my Insiders Club until I croak, which I hope isn't for 25 years. And because of what's going on in the world right now and the way this world could turn out, where we could be up against some really tough times in the not so distant future, I did it again. I opened up the Insiders Club. I'm going to leave it open for a week, and it's $600. You get my Insiders Club for as long as I can produce it, which I hope is a long time. And since it's really not fair, a lot of your listeners wouldn't have any history with me. Here's what I would do for your listeners. Just stop by investyourself.com and sign up for the free newsletter. It's totally free. I don't want a credit card. I don't want your address. I don't want anything. I don't even advertise in it. There's nothing in the free letter but a free letter. Take it around the block for a month or so, and if you like what you see and you're a Doug Ray listener, at the end of that, send me an email, and I will honor that $600 lifetime, even though I'm closing it to the general public next Sunday.
Well, that sounds like a great deal, Bob. And folks, let me tell you, like I said, I have been a subscriber for several years, and I jumped on his lifetime offer. And let me tell you one reason why I did. Every once in a while, every blue moon, so to speak, Bob will come up with what he calls his Vegas play. The first time he did the Vegas play was several years ago, and in 17 months, he turned $30,000 into $1.2 million. And then the next Vegas play, he started somewhere in late October, early November of 15. And by June of last year, a $19,000 investment had turned into $250,000. I was late to that play. I got in probably sometime in April and still made a decent amount of money. Bob comes out in about July or August and says, hey, I think things are overcooked here. Maybe you ought to take some of the money off the table a little bit. And, I would encourage you to take Bob up on his offer, go look at his free newsletter, and then make your decision as to whether or not you want to jump on board for the lifetime subscription. Hey, let's go back to the market right now. We've got a couple minutes left here. Are you as surprised as I am at the rally this market's gone on since the election?
I am and I am not. And it bakes into that cake of what's going on in the really big picture. I can make a perfect excuse for this market going to Dow 30,000. I can also make a perfect scenario where it gets cut in half. And it really does depend on the Trump situation and what's going on globally. Now, has this gotten away? Yeah, there's no question that this is looking a lot more like a last gasp run for the roses. This reminds me an awful lot of late 1999, where they just threw all caution to the wind and jumped in the market. That usually doesn't end that well. But if indeed the right things happened with printing money and they continued it, then, this could continue for quite some time. So let me give you an example of that. Things have really changed, Doug, and you know this. Over the last few years, you've seen changes you've never seen before. Well, we now have central banks openly telling you, yes, we buy stocks. And the Swiss National Bank just updated their accounts. They own $68 billion worth of U.S. stocks. Now, if you've got a bank that can print money out of thin air and then use it to go buy 50,000 shares of Apple stock, Apple has nothing to do but go up. So in that light, I can say, if they keep this kind of thing up, this market can just keep chugging higher because it's being bought up with free money.
Bob, we got about 30 seconds here, Bob, and no, that's all right. This is fascinating stuff. And when we come back from the break, I want to get into, some other topics that you've made me aware of. What's going on with Russia? Why you think we may be closer than ever to World War III, and are the markets rigged? What's going on with gold and what's going on with oil? When you look at things and look at it from a mind-opening point of view, you can't but say that things just don't look normal. And you've been listening to The Wealth Guardian Show. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back into the Wealth Guardians radio program. I got my friend Bob Rainier, and we're having an incredible conversation about politics, the market, the world in general. And we've got some more eye-opening talk here in a minute. But first, I want to remind everybody about the Social Security workshop that's coming up in Clemens on February 23rd and 28th. A lot of you are rolling into that Social Security stage of life, so it's time to learn about it and what your options are. All you have to do to register for that workshop is give us a call at 336-391-3409 or go on our website at thewealthguardians.com and click on the events tab. You'll be hearing more and more about this event as the days go along. Casey will be on the air with more information. Bob, get you back in here, man. In a recent letter that you penned, you said in this letter that you believe that we are facing important times, so important that it really could change society unlike anything we've ever seen before. You also think that we may be closer to World War III than most people even believe or can understand. Tell my listeners what's going on in your head.
Well, what's going on in my head is this. I'm almost 60 years old. I've been through an awful lot of things. Vietnam, disco, Watergate, a lot of things, 9/11. But I feel stranger right now than I ever have in my entire life. And the reason why is because of what you're seeing with Mr. Trump and this establishment pushback. I said when he got elected and the news media went kind of crazy, I said, this is not over, folks. This is definitely not over. This is going to go on for a long, long time. And what we see around the world is that the pendulum had swung so far toward this globalist, open borders, homogenized societies kind of thing. And so many jobs have been shipped to the Asian countries, and so many people were out of work. And then, of course, you've got the refugee situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that a small group of people have stood up and said, hey, you know what, folks? We are almost over the cliff here, and we really need to bring this back because all you corporations that help run the world, make no mistake, Bill Gates from Microsoft is a very powerful guy. The guys that built Google are very powerful guys. This Zuckerberg from Facebook is very powerful guys. Well, the problem is when you destroy the middle class to the point where they have no money to buy your products, what good is things? So there's been this pushback against this agenda, this globalist agenda that's been in place for a long, long time, to swing the pendulum back. And indeed, this is exactly why I believe Mr. Trump was selected. He didn't just wake up one day and say, gee, I think I'll try this president thing. He was selected to do a handful of specific jobs. And one of those jobs was to try and resuscitate the middle class, bring that pendulum back a little bit so that, again, we make enough wages to go out and purchase products that all these corporatists create. Well, if you've made your trillions being on the side of advancing globalism, you certainly don't want any part of going back the other way. So the pushback is bigger and stronger than I've ever experienced or ever seen, and it's causing tensions all over the place. And one of the things that they know deep in their heart is, well, we can solve a lot of this and put a halt to this if we just spark up a real good war, which gets everybody's mind back into uh-oh and forgetting what we're doing in the background. So the push to strike up a hot war, a bigger hot war, not these little skirmishes in Syria. I'm talking about, a bigger one, is an agenda that quite a few at the top level have on their plate. They would love nothing more than that, as long as they think they could keep it non-nuclear. And they get to spend more money on military, and they get to take people's eyes off of what's going on politically. And we're pretty close. I mean, we are pretty close. I don't know if you noticed, but I think it was yesterday, a couple of days ago anyway, a Russian spy ship was within 100 miles of the coast of the United States. They're desperately trying to find out what in the world we're really planning as we continue to send more and more troops to their doorstep. It's a very tense time.
Yeah, if you just joined us, we're listening or talking to Bob Rainier today, talking about crazy things going on in the world. When I was in the Navy, I flew against a lot of Soviet spy ships. That part doesn't really concern me. I know what they're doing out there. I'll tell you what is interesting to me and what kind of, I think, fits hand in glove with what you're talking about here is how warlike the Democrats are sounding when they talk about Russia. These folks have been pacifist in historical times. And I don't know if they think the Russians really did steal the election from Hillary or not, but it's just very interesting to me how warlike they are when talking about Russia and Trump and Flynn and everything else.
Yeah, it's way over the top, and that's the pretense behind. It's like carpet bombing. You got to carpet bomb the citizens into believing Russia bad, Putin bad, that Putin overthrew Ukraine, that they stole Crimea. All of that, by the way, is a lie. All of that is a lie, okay? I'm sure most of your listeners are rolling their eyes going, this guy's nuts. No, this guy is not nuts. The United States fomented the coup, and it was a coup in Ukraine that allowed the toppling of their elected president and the installation of a puppet, okay? That's a fact. In fact, Marine Le Pen, who is running for president of France, said that very thing on CNN just a week ago, and a bunch of heads exploded trying to deal with that. But anyway, but yet all people have ever been told is that bad Russia came in, invaded Crimea, annexed it, took it over. They're the big bad guys. Well, they have to carpet bomb the population with that, so that if they do go ahead and start a first strike war, everybody's behind it. Yeah, well, those Russians were the bad guys. Look at all the bad things they've done. And they will not let it go. That's why I say it's a very tense time.
Something else our listeners probably don't know is, I think it was, and correct me if I'm wrong here, wasn't it late November, early December when the outgoing Obama administration moved about 800 U.S. tanks across Europe up to the Ukrainian border?
4,000.
Was it 4,000? Oh, thank you for that correction.
4,000. Yeah, 4,000 tanks, tens of thousands of troops. And they've put them right on the Polish border with Russia. So close, in fact, that had Putin done this in Cuba, we'd be back to a Cuban Missile Crisis again. So these are very disturbing things. We've been poking the big bear in the eye, hoping. See, we're supposed to be the United States. We're the good guys. We're not supposed to be the people that start wars. So we're doing everything that we can to provoke either an accidental discharge that starts something, or some scared Russian sergeant who makes a mistake, and the next thing you know, we're in war. That's what they're trying to do, and it's scary.
Folks, Bob is not nuts. I want you to go to his website, investyourself.com, take him up on his offer, look at the free site, and he will give you, my listeners, the offer of a lifetime. You can subscribe to his letter, his pay letter, for life for $600. That's it, $600. In that letter, he talks about a lot of what we're talking about today, plus he gives you his trades. He doesn't tell you what to do, he just tells you what he's doing. For those of you who run around for the first segment, let me tease you a little bit. He has some interesting trades called Vegas trades, one of which turned $30,000 into $1.2 million in 17 months. The Vegas trade I'm in turned $19,000 into $250,000 in about 7 months. So it's investyourself.com. Boy.
That was nice. Thank you very much. And those plays don't come along every day. We can't fool people.
No.
Honesty is everything here. But they do come up, once every year or so. And when they do, they can be awfully, awfully good.
All right. So you think we're very close to World War III. Another concern that I have is this move towards a cashless society. You've written about it in your newsletter. India has already gone in that direction. Let's talk about that for, I guess, the last few minutes we have left in the show today.
Well, this is the biggest latest push, is a move for a completely cashless digital society, and it's global. In fact, the Chinese have just announced that they have set up a task force to investigate the possibility of a sovereign digital currency. Okay? So it's spreading around the world. Now, what this means is they're using the same old, tired explanation. They're saying there's no reason to use cash because only drug dealers and terrorists use cash. And if you're an honest citizen, you don't need cash. But that has nothing to do with it. What it really has to do with is, again, back to this global agenda of control. They want to know everything about you, what you do, what you buy, what your trends are, et cetera, et cetera. They also want the ability, hey, you haven't paid taxes in a long time. We're just going in your digital account and taking it. There's nothing you can do about it. And then if you don't play along, they can simply flip your switch. Imagine this, Doug. This is like something out of Orwell. If everything is digital, where you have no cash, you have to swipe a thing, your phone, whatever, if they don't like you and they flip your switch, now your digital system is down. You can't buy a gallon of milk. You can't pay your rent. You can't do anything. They like that kind of control. So now China's exploring it. India is doing it as we speak. Over in the EU, they've banned the 1,000-euro note, the 500 note. They've already said here, Lindsay over here has already said we should get rid of the 100 and the 50s. That's one of their globalist agendas, and it's coming.
We got about 40 seconds here. I think I've read this stuff in a book called Revelation. I don't know about you. Wow, we've covered a lot of base today. Gosh, I wish we had another couple hours to talk about this. Folks, do go to his website, investyourself.com. Read up on this. Bob is not nuts, and he'll prove it to you. Thanks, Bob, for being on the show today. Golly, we're going to have you back because we just basically scratched the surface, didn't we?
Yeah, we really did, Doug. And thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed the show.
All right. Thank you. There he goes. All right, folks. Thank you for being a part of today's Wealth Guardians radio program, and we'll see you next week.